From the studios of Staten Island Community Television, you're watching In the Bleachers, the TV show for the world's most passionate sports fans. Hello, everyone. I'm Jaime Hixson. Now, we're trying to get Hector Boza through the studio phone line, but we seem to be running through a bunch of difficulties. So, fear not. We're going to try and get this thing going for the entire hour, and if we can get Hector, great. Now, we're very happy that you could join us. Now, for those of you who may be checking us out on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and elsewhere, we unfortunately were not able to upload last week's episode on either of those avenues because we forgot to press record. Oh, well. These things happen, you know, so hopefully we'll be able to get this thing up and running and we can put it through on Facebook and Twitter this time. Now, if you have a story that you would like told about a certain sports event or particular athlete, then we want to know about it. Contact us through Facebook and Twitter, and we would love to hear your story. Now, it is the Monday after week 14 of the NFL season. And unfortunately, the Giants came back down to earth with a very loud thud. They got their butts kicked by Arizona yesterday. And to be quite honest with you, it was just a simple case of repeating some very bad habits. For example, they didn't take care of the football. They didn't protect the quarterback. And let's face facts, Arizona was the better team yesterday. And to be quite honest with you, Kyler Murray was the same guy that gave the Giants problems that the other guy gave them just the week before, which was Russell Wilson. I mean, granted, Wilson was played a little bit better by the Giant D than yesterday, but still, yesterday's game just goes to show you that the Giants have major problems with scrambling quarterbacks. If they can keep these guys in the pocket, then it will really give them a fighting chance in a particular game. Now the Giants are a game out of first place behind Washington of all teams, and Washington wound up winning yesterday against San Francisco. And just when you thought things were going to go south for the Washington franchise, when Alex Smith wound up hurting his leg, a familiar face, Dwayne Haskins, wound up making his way in, and overall he fared reasonably well. So now the Redskins are a game under 500, and they lead the Eastern Division. Tell you what, whoever wins that Eastern Division, whether it's going to be Washington, whether it's going to be the Giants, or Philly, or Dallas, they're going to give somebody a lot of trouble. I'll tell you that much. As far as the Jets were concerned, what is there to say about the Jets that has not already been said? The team is just dreadful. And yesterday, you can look no further than the kicking game to pinpoint their entire problem. Not only that, but Seattle just manhandled Sam Darnold yesterday. And it just goes to show you that if you sack the quarterback, you take away scoring opportunities. And the Jets just could not create any scoring opportunities whatsoever yesterday. Now the countdown is really on because the Jets have to play the Rams and the Browns. And if I'm not mistaken, I think they have the Bills again. No, wait a minute, not the Bills. The Patriots. Rams, Browns, and Patriots to end the season. And I think things are looking pretty good for the Jets to have themselves a winless season. But if this doesn't cause Adam Gase to lose his job, I don't know what will, because it seems like he has zero clue how to put together a strong offense. And this was the guy who was supposed to be the so-called offensive guru. But the guru of what? It's just an embarrassment what's happening with that franchise. Elsewhere, Dallas stayed in the NFC East hunt when they beat Cincinnati. And Philadelphia pulled off the upset of the weekend when they beat New Orleans. And, the Saints really had their chances here. But unfortunately, a missed field goal really wound up costing them. And it was also the unveiling of Jalen Hurts as the starting quarterback, and he did pretty well for himself. He showed a strong arm. He was able to use his feet to make plays, and I think the Eagles might have their quarterback of the future. Now, whether he can try and mount a comeback for the rest of this season, who knows? But it just goes to show you the most popular player on a football team is always the backup quarterback. And yesterday, the backup quarterback really showed his worth to the Eagles. Now, elsewhere in the NFL, Buffalo wound up beating Pittsburgh yesterday, and right now we're seeing a real changing of the guard in the AFC East because New England wound up losing to the Rams this past Thursday. And it just goes to show you what happens when one player who did so much for that franchise winds up leaving. And this is nothing against Cam Newton. Cam Newton has had a nice career. But it just goes to show you that if you don't mount an offense, you just get lost. Now, as far as other games are concerned, Green Bay wound up winning the NFC North. But to be quite honest with you, was there ever really any doubt? I mean, Aaron Rodgers wound up showing that he is still the man to beat in the NFC. In other games yesterday, we mentioned Green Bay. They wound up beating Detroit. And we also mentioned one Tom Brady, who was the Mr. Everything for the Patriots for 20 years. Now, he's doing all he can to try and make the Tampa Bay Buccaneers a contender. And just yesterday, Brady wound up having another solid game as he wound up leading the Patriots. Old habits die hard, folks. He wound up leading the Buccaneers to victory over the Vikings. So, checking out some other stuff in the NFL, Atlanta wound up blowing another a lead, and they wound up losing to San Diego. And Indianapolis pulled away for a victory against the Raiders. So it's looking more and more like the Colts are going to hold on to one of those playoff spots, the wild card spots, if you will. Now, as far as what's going on elsewhere in the world of sports, finally the Mets wound up getting the catcher that they wanted. They wound up getting James McCann on a 4-year deal. It would have been nice to see them get JT Realmuto, but $200 million is just way too rich for anybody's blood. I'm sure he's going to get a nice contract somewhere, whether it's $200 million or some other amount. But the Mets, quite frankly, wound up getting their guy. They wound up getting James McCann. And mostly why they chose him instead of Realmuto is because McCann really made strides on his defense behind the plate, specifically setting a target for the pitching staff. So let's see if James McCann can continue his improvements behind the plate. And he was also a pretty decent power hitter, too. I think he had about 15 home runs during the regular season. It was either 15 or 11 home runs that he wound up hitting during the regular season. Speaking of new additions, the Mets also got themselves a brand new general manager. It's Jared Harper. who makes his way over here from the Diamondbacks organization. And just to give you an idea who Jared Harper is, Jared Harper is a kid from Minnesota who worked for both the Red Sox and the Cubs, and was even a member of their World Series winning organizations in years past. And just over the last 4 years, Harper was serving as the assistant general manager for the Diamondbacks. And he comes in with a reputation for being a really good guy, and more importantly, really showing his penchant for scouting talent, because he was a scouting director for both the Cubs and the Red Sox in years past. So let's see what Jared Harper can do to try and hit a home run, for lack of a better word, in free agency. Now that the Mets have James McCann, the other free agents that the Mets have been connected to, for example, Trevor Bauer and also Corey Kluber. Trevor Bauer has been one guy who's sang the praises of what the Mets have done in recent weeks. So let's see what the Mets can do to try and bring Trevor Bauer onto this pitching staff. If they were to get him, you combine him with Noah Syndergaard and Jacob deGrom and also Marcus Stroman, you've got a really strong quartet that could contend for a playoff spot. So let's see exactly what happens when it comes to Jared Harper trying to talk these guys into being Mets for next season and beyond. As for the Yankees, all of a sudden, getting DJ LeMahieu to return to wearing pinstripes is not necessarily a done deal. Because for one, they're $25 million apart in contract negotiations. And number two, he's gotten a lot of interest from other teams that have been involved in his services. So let's see what the Yankees can try and do. Things have been pretty quiet with the Yankees lately. So we're going to see what happens when it comes to the Yankees and the Mets, and what happens with free agency. I'm not sure if they're going to have the winter meetings because of COVID, but it would be really interesting to see what would happen with one of these guys. Checking out some stuff in basketball, they had the most recent preseason games starting over the weekend. If I'm not mistaken, I think the Nets won their game against the Washington Wizards, and the Knicks won their game against the Pistons. And speaking of which, that net game featured the unveiling of that duo, Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, going up against Russell Westbrook. And it was nice to see both Westbrook and Kevin Durant speak to each other after the game. I mean, we know that things were a little bitter between the two, especially when Durant left for Golden State a few years ago. But now things are, I guess you could say that they've cooled down between the two. So let's see if Kevin Durant can keep his good health in order, if he can lead the Nets to a playoff spot and probably a long run in the NBA playoffs. But the biggest story that's been going on in the NBA right now is James Harden. We now know that James Harden has made it loud and clear he wants out of Houston. That John Wall trade did nothing to change his mind. So now the Rockets I don't want to say that they're put in a corner, but they do have a little bit of a bind here because they've got a disgruntled player, and they do not want to have a disgruntled player poison their locker room. So either they trade him during this preseason or they trade him during the deadline in March, either February or March. And one team that has already popped up as a possible destination is Miami. And the Heat have made it clear that none of their young players are considered untouchable. So in case the two teams want to talk turkey, there's your story right there. Now, as far as what we expect from the Knicks and the Nets this season, I expect the Knicks to be maybe a 20-win team this season. There is no chance in hell they're making the playoffs this year. I mean, seriously, do you honestly think that the Knicks can rest their chances on Julius Randle to be a playoff team? Julius Randle has never even made the playoffs in his life. So I think we should temper our enthusiasm for this franchise and call a spade a spade. As far as the Nets are concerned, it all rests on the health of Durant and Kyrie Irving. If they can keep their health 100% in order, there's a strong possibility that the Nets might make a pretty interesting run in the NBA playoffs. But if one of them or both of them winds up with a catastrophic injury, they could be a 500 club. And we saw that from them last year. Last year, the Nets were 2 games under 500 in the COVID-shortened season. So let's see exactly what happens this season. As far as the NHL is concerned, not really much to report on the NHL. The preseason for them starts, I think, sometime in the next week or two. And then their season starts in January, the regular season, that is. So there's really nothing much to talk about as far as the NHL is concerned. Both the Rangers and the Islanders, and also the Devils, have been pretty quiet during this off season. Well, we got plenty of time to try and talk turkey here. So, just recently, let's bring up a little wrestling news, so to speak. Just recently, I wound up watching the NWA on YouTube, and they have a new TV show called Power. And even though it ran a little short, it was a pretty good setting that they had. Of course, they're doing this in an empty arena, and I saw that their NWA Women's Champion, Thunder Rosa, wound up successfully defending her championship. And tomorrow night, Nick Aldis, who calls himself the National Treasure, he's going to be defending his title. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this latest edition of Power holds up. Checking out some stuff in college sports. Well, unfortunately, my alma mater, St. John's, wound up losing last night to Georgetown in a really fine ball game, too. St. John's wound up winning the game on a layup at the buzzer off an inbounds pass. And then Georgetown wound up scoring the last 6 points of overtime to win it all. So hopefully St. John's can try and bounce back a little bit. As far as college football, they're having the conference championships take place this weekend. And we already know that Oregon has replaced Washington to take on USC for the Pac-12 championship. Ohio State's going to play Northwestern for the Big Ten championship. The Big 12 title, I think, has Iowa State and Oklahoma. And the Southeastern Conference title has Alabama against Florida. And the ACC has Clemson versus Notre Dame. That Clemson versus Notre Dame game is going to be really, really tight. And now we're going to see exactly how Clemson's quarterback, Trevor Lawrence, does in a really tight spot. As far as what else is going on in the world of sports, it's pretty much the same old, folks. There have been a lot of rumors about some of the hot coaching prospects in the NFL. Again, the one guy that I want to see get a job someplace is Eric Bieniemy, who's currently the defensive coordinator with the Chiefs. I remember Eric Bieniemy as a player for the University of Colorado, and he was a running back back then. And he was a really good player, And even though his NFL career didn't last too long, his coaching career has really blossomed. If the Jets really want to be a contender down the road, they hire Eric Bieniemy without any questions asked. So it's gotten to the point where things are starting to wind down in the NFL season. Now, back to the NBA. I read this, or I saw this video that took place over the summer about LeBron James and the talk that he had with some of the young players and some of the veterans on the Laker roster. He talked about how he had to look out for some of the players that were quote-unquote beneath him. I think we may have seen a side of LeBron that most people honestly do not like. Because if you're going to talk about people as being beneath you, that's going to leave a bad mark on you. As it turns out, some of the players wound up storming out of the meeting and they actually went to members of the media asking, what did he mean by beneath us? It just goes to show you that if you don't treat players the way you would want to be treated, they're going to look at you the wrong way. And this thing, let's face facts, this really rubbed people the wrong way. Going back to the NFL, tonight it's Ravens and Browns and Monday Night Football. Can you believe the Cleveland Browns are actually over 500 for the first time in, 13 years? Finally, things are looking up for this franchise. Even though they are not without their problems, specifically one, Baker Mayfield. But at the same time, they've been able to ride a really solid defense led by Myles Garrett. So let's see what the Browns can do in a big game like this against the Ravens. If I'm not mistaken, a Browns win would give them 10 wins for the season, which would also be for the first time in 13 years. And they would move closer to being an actual playoff team. And who saw that happening? You may not know this, but the Browns actually have the longest drought in between playoff games. 17 years. They're currently on a 17-game drought, 17-year drought, without a single playoff game. So the Browns want to be on their best game if they want to try and win against the Ravens. The Ravens are a tough team, though. They have a really good quarterback in Lamar Jackson, a decent running game. Unfortunately, things have been kind of going south for them. I think they have a 2 or a 3 game winning streak, if I'm not mistaken. So it's critical that the Ravens put together a solid game if they want to try and get the victory. Back to baseball, the Red Sox wound up making a deal for a catcher, giving him a 1-year deal. It's going to be really crucial for the Red Sox to try and get back to their winning ways. And I think it would be good if they were to get back to their winning ways, because the rivalry with the Yankees would be a lot more juicy. Well, going back to basketball, the Pistons wound up releasing one of the members of the Ball family, LiAngelo Ball, and already LeVar Ball is popping off at the mouth. What he doesn't realize is LiAngelo Ball is just not that good. If anybody has seen him play, he's got no, well, for one, he's got no dribble. Number 2, he's got no jump shot. I mean, he could probably bang around inside a little bit because he's got a little bit of bulk in him, but he has no game whatsoever. If anything, he'll be lucky if he lands himself a job either in the G League or overseas somewhere. And speaking of the Pistons, they've been looked at as probably one of the worst teams in the league so far, up there with the Knicks and the Hornets and the Oklahoma City Thunder. And also the Cavaliers and the Wizards and the Bulls also. Well, going back to football, it's even in spite of the loss yesterday, it's pretty nice to see Joe Judge do the kind of job that he has with this team. He's made this team prepared. They've played hard for him. And where you can really see things on the up and up is on the defensive end. Now, as far as what the Giants should do when the draft comes around in April, dare I say that maybe they could use a franchise wide receiver to throw the ball to? I dare. Because I've barely seen anything out of Golden Tate and Sterling Shepard. So it's gotten to the point where they really need to get themselves a franchise receiver so they can try and truck along. Now, as far as what the Giants going to do the last 3 games of the year, it's going to be really, really tough, folks. Because they have Cleveland, Baltimore, and Dallas. 2 teams over 500. So it's going to be really tough for the Giants to try and get over the hump these last 3 games. Sorry. Going back to hockey, the Islanders are going to be having Matthew Barzal coming back. And he had an outstanding postseason, which resulted in a trip to the Eastern Conference Finals. Now, can they try and repeat that or maybe go one step further this season? Who knows? But one thing is for certain, the Islanders are going to need Matthew Barzal if they want to try and get to that next level. As for the Rangers, I'm wondering what they're going to do with their number 1 draft pick. Are they going to use him as part of their roster, or are they going to send him to the minor leagues, or are they going to send him back to Europe? As for the Devils, they had a lousy 2019-20, which resulted in them getting another high draft pick. Excuse me. At least they had the pleasure of getting that draft pick and also having a few good young players, good young role players, to try and get them to that next level. And now there's also P.K. Subban, who's going to be in his 2nd season as a Devil. Back to baseball in a bit. Who should the Mets go after. I mean, there are some guys that are really out there that really could make a difference for a contender. Trevor Bauer, Corey Kluber, both of whom are very, very good pitchers. They've solved their problem. The Mets have solved their problem at catcher. Now it's a question of what are they going to do to try and solve their pitching holes, and also are they going to get themselves a center fielder? George Springer is available. Maybe George Springer can do something for the Mets. Although, to be honest with you, George Springer is a strikeout waiting to happen. So take that for what it's worth, but they do need somebody that's going to try and mount a lot of offense at the plate and also provide the necessary defense in center field. So center field and pitching are the two things that the Mets really do need to try and harp on. Oh, back to the NFL. Probably the best game of the day yesterday was Kansas City and Miami. Did you see that wild play in which Patrick Mahomes Jr. wound up going all the way back close to his own end zone and wound up getting tripped up on his own 2 feet? I know he's usually a whiz when it comes to scrambling out of trouble, but that's usually a no-no for a quarterback to do. The Chiefs wound up winning that game. I think it was 33-27. Now the Chiefs are going for home field for the entire AFC playoffs. And right now, they've retaken their place as the best team in the NFL. It had been Pittsburgh for a while, but no longer. Also, Chicago wound up blowing out Houston. They're a game under 500, but they are not without their problems. Mostly, it's centering around the quarterback position. Before I continue, I do want to say that Terry Converse is on the other side of the glass, and he's been kind of double dipping a little bit between being here and also in one of the editing rooms working on a project. So I just want to say thanks to Terry. And also, before I continue, I want to give some special get well wishes to Kenny Graham, who's usually on the other side of the glass. Kenny, unfortunately, has been very ill lately. And he's been out for what seems like 4 weeks because of his illness. So I just want to say, Kenny, get well. You're a good man. You're a good worker. We certainly hope that you could make your way back to the other side of the glass as well as your own office so you can always make sure that things are running smoothly like they always are here. Get well, Kenny. As far as the contenders are concerned, we already know that in the AFC, it's Kansas City, Pittsburgh, Tennessee, and Buffalo. Not necessarily in that order that are the division leaders. Meanwhile, Indianapolis, Miami, and who's that other team? Indianapolis, Miami, and Cleveland. Those are the wild cards right now. This year, the NFL has expanded their playoffs to include 3 wild card teams in addition to their 4 division champions. So those are your division champions and wild card teams. And also, there are 3 other teams that are in the hunt. As far as the NFC is concerned, Green Bay, New Orleans, Seattle, and Washington are the 4 division leaders. The Los Angeles Rams, Tampa, and Arizona are the 3 wild cards. And if I'm not mistaken, I think 5 to 7 teams are still in the hunt. So these last 3 weeks are going to be critical if these teams want to be able to nail down playoff spots. They have to take care of their business. We've got 11 minutes left on the show. And I want to repeat once again that if you have a story that you want told on In the Bleachers, whatever kind of sports story that's going on, whether it's a football team or a basketball team, it could be somewhere in between. Please contact us through Facebook and Twitter, and we would love to tell your story on the show. All right, with about 10 minutes left, I want to take this time to wish everyone a very happy, healthy, and safe holiday season. I'd like to say thanks to all of my friends here at CTV, specifically my coworkers here at CTV, for still allowing me to do the show for the last 15 years. And also, I want to give a special word of thanks to all of my friends and family who really have shown me a lot of love and a lot of caring. I want to thank my mom and dad. I'd also like to thank my fiance, Jennifer. I want to thank my family in Florida and in the Dominican for really showing me a lot of love. One thing that has been a topic of conversation for baseball fans here on Staten Island is the end of the Staten Island Yankees. Unfortunately, this travesty, if you will, has been perpetrated by the fact that Major League Baseball has decided to make a major chewing of the fat or trimming of the fat in minor league baseball. They had 160 minor league teams. Well, now they're down to 120. And one of the casualties of this elimination of teams was Staten Island. So now the Yankees only have Scranton, Wilkes-Barre, Somerset County, which was a very famous independent league team. Also, Tampa, and a couple of their rookie league teams. And unfortunately, Staten Island was eliminated. And because of that, Staten Island has had to end their existence here on Staten Island. So unfortunately, there will no longer be baseball here on Staten Island unless we have a miracle take place. Now, on the Mets side, they actually have a New York contingent of minor league teams. There's Syracuse, there's Binghamton, and there's Brooklyn. Interesting that the Mets are keeping Brooklyn as their high level of A-ball baseball team, whereas the Yankees have decided to eliminate Staten Island. Well, this unfortunately has made a lot of baseball fans very unhappy here. And there had been some talk about possibly having an independent league team. But unfortunately, the finances may not allow for an independent team to take place here on Staten Island. So We are a borough with a baseball diamond, yet no baseball team. Hopefully, the powers that be here on Staten Island can still try and do something to see if we can have some baseball here on the island, because this is another elimination of a recreational activity that would have been really great for the kids. Now, as far as other stuff is concerned, we only have a couple of minutes left. As far as other stuff is concerned, just recently, the WWE star Seth Rollins and his fiance, the man Becky Lynch, welcomed their first child to the world. So I want to say congratulations to Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch for being first-time parents. I'm sure you're going to have a long and fruitful road as parents. Now, with about 2 minutes left, I once again want to say, if you or someone you know has a sports story that they would like to have told, then we would like to know about it. So contact us through Facebook and through Twitter, and we would love to hear from you. And also, I want to give a special shout out again to Terry Converse, who's on the other side of the glass, double dipping between here and the edit room, working on a project. By the way, Merry Christmas, Terry. Well, I think that's just about going to do it for us, folks. Again, thanks to Terry on the other side of the glass. Thanks to you guys at home for watching. And I apologize for the slow pace that was going on with the show. Hopefully it will not happen again. So, for everyone here, I'm Jamie. We hope to see you next time. Good night, everyone.